Welcome to Catch and Go. In today's telecast, we're going to do the title called Part 18 of the Kingdom of Heaven is at Hand. Below it, simply write down Shutdown. PowerPoint number 1 is shut down completely from society. Let me say that again. PowerPoint number 1 is shut down completely from society. PowerPoint number 2, simply write the term next to it, write the global digital ID. PowerPoint number 3, simply write global consequences. Then PowerPoint number 4, simply write, you need to listen and circle to this one, the withering of the saints. Because at 9:23 a.m., which was the time today, the grace of God came, which is February 16, 2026, 9:23 a.m., and the Lord began to speak to me, and he said, the withering of the saints. PowerPoint number 5, life withering away. PowerPoint number 6, totally circle this one and simply highlight it. This one is blackness. PowerPoint number 7, who are you listening to? And then PowerPoint number 8, constant pressure. Below that, you simply write Satan's final seduction. Let me go over quickly the PowerPoint. First, the title is The Kingdom of Heaven is at Hand. It's part 18. PowerPoint number 1 is shut down completely from society. PowerPoint number 2, the turn. PowerPoint number 3, global consequences. But in PowerPoint number 2, next to it, I told you to write the global digital ID. PowerPoint number 3, global consequences. PowerPoint number 4, the withering of the saints. The time was 9:23 a.m., February 16, 2026, which was this morning when the word of the Lord came and the Lord spoke those words to me concerning the withering of the saints. PowerPoint number 5, life withering away. PowerPoint number 6, I told you to highlight and circle that one, and that was blackness. PowerPoint number 7, who are you listening to? You might as well simply circle that one, because I felt a pop in a stir where the Lord stirred my spirit when it came to PowerPoint number 7, and that one you're going to have to pay attention. PowerPoint number 8, constant pressure, and below that, Satan's final seduction. We're going to go back into John chapter 6, verse 64 to 71. We're not going to do a conclusion to part 13. I felt to just go ahead and use that verse, go into that chapter again, and do part 18 of the Kingdom of Heaven is at Hand, shut down. But you need to understand that when I did part 13, remember I called it Many Will Walk Away. And then there was supposed to be a conclusion, but I turned it into part 18. And part 18 is not only the Kingdom of Heaven is at Hand, shut down. Let us begin with PowerPoint number 1 is shut down completely from society. But before we go deep into the chapter, and remember I broke and dissected the first 7, 8, or 9 verses to that chapter. And you need to keep in mind and bear in mind, we're going to get to the bottom of what's happening, because there are several things that I forgot to tell you. One, somewhere on your notes, write lightning and thundering. Let me say that again. Write lightning and thundering, and we're closer than ever that the Lord said. And the Lord spoke for the first time, and the word of the Lord came to me when I said lightning and thundering. The grace of God came. The Lord said, clearing the sky. And that has major prophetic implication. And the grace of God is simply sending a stern warning. When I said lightning and thundering, the grace of God delivered the first timely word. And the word of the Lord came, and the Lord said, clearing the sky. And the grace of God is putting civilization in the world on notice that the tremors are coming. There's going to be a shaking from the top to the bottom. The Lord is going to shake the foundations of the heavens and earth. Everything below the earth, in heaven and on earth, is going to be shaken. And there is another thing that the grace of God said. You saw me pause. You saw me hesitate. The grace of God said, there is a rude awakening. Another thing that you write below lightning and thundering, and you simply write, it's a flashing point. And the reason I say we are at a flashing point, not only of the battle of Ezekiel 38, the battle of Armageddon, we're in the global sequence event that the grace of God even came out. And he's showing me in the realm of the Spirit, Revelation chapter 9, what's the purpose, what's the reason, what's the prophetic implication, what's the divine intervention behind him showing me, Revelation chapter 9, because he is wanting me to remind you that when we spoke concerning Revelation chapter 9, he said it's a sequence in a dual prophecy, and those two events happens in consecutive session. You see that soon you're going to see that one come out of the bottomless pit, and then somewhere at some point you're going to see where in Revelation chapter 9 starts with verse 13, 14. You can keep trickling down the verses. You're going to see that God said the Euphrates Rivers and those four angelical beings that are going to be released with the one from the bottomless pit. They're going to cause havoc, and 1/3 of civilization in the bubble and 1/3 of civilization being completely, totally eliminated from the face of the earth. You see, I said to you to write lightning and thundering. Bear in mind, there is something so profound that I said to you to write below it, and that was the word flashing point. And I said that because the Lord did something just now. He took my eyes, shifted them into the realm of the Spirit, and he told me to simply to tell you, to every listener, everyone that's viewing this telecast and this channel, or anyone that's going to listen to this message, needs to understand that the grace of God came, shifted my eyes into the realm of the Spirit, popped the window open, and had me go ahead and to tell you that you need to circle the word flashing point, because we're at a flashing point of global war, global conflicts, global collision. God said the transition, where I did a title where he is reminding me now of that title called the global transition, and not only everything being totally transformed in this transformation, you're going to see the global revolution, everything being revolutionized, and then you got the 11th hour, the establishment of a new empire, the final empire, global empire. In the grace of God said in the title, the realignment, he said, God came out and said, the realignment has to do, and it's the substance of the establishment of a new world order. But let's go to John chapter 6, verse 64. But there is other things that I simply want you to write down somewhere on your notes, where I told you to write the global digital ID. I also told you, but I believe I just said blackness, which is one of my PowerPoints. You need to keep in mind that one of the things that actually, it's also a highlight in this title, part 18 of the Kingdom of Heaven, is simply this. The question is, what's in the making? And what's in the making is simply a flashing point. He took my eyes into the realm of the Spirit, opened the window, and the Lord showed me the word checkmate. Remember, he said, clearing the sky. What he said after that was what the Lord said, that there's going to be a time where the Lord said, clearing the sky, and then he said, a rude awakening. Then I just said to you, one of the key highlights and point of part 18 of the Kingdom of Heaven, which you need to remember, totally remember, it's what's in the making, is simply the word flashing point. And he popped the window again and showed me the word checkmate. You see, it's a game of chess. And the Lord said, it's a game of chess where nations and global leaders are trying to see how they can outmaneuver each other. But I also want to give you a stern warning that I have said over and over, that there is, and I will put my pen down for the first time and tell you that there is one sovereign holy God. Not only one sovereign God, but I need to get a little bit technical with world leaders, world power, world government, especially those that are talking about that the world will be taken over by robotics and robots and all this UFO thing. I have said over and over that there is one sovereign holy God, and he's about to do what he just said to me. The grace of God spoke for the second or third time, and he said that he's about to raise up a standard. So quickly, let's go to PowerPoint number 1, shut down completely from society. But let's turn and read verse number 64 of John chapter 6. But there are some, say with me, but there are some. Now I want you to say with me, but there are many, and there are some. Remember, that was in, this is now. And the grace of God saying, this is the word that came to me from the Lord. And the word of the Lord brought this word. He said that this title, part 18 of the kingdom of heaven, it's at hand. He said that it's a now word. Look what he said. It's a now word for this specific time and specific moment when it comes to civilization. Then he dropped divine revelation and revealing his forecast, and God revealing, because what he said after that, he said the rainbow will appear. God is sounding the alarm and saying, checkmate, a rude awakening, clearing the sky. There's turbulence in the sky. There's going to be not only the tremors that are coming, a shaking of the heavens and earth. And God took my eyes for the third time, opened the window, and I saw the tombs simply popping open. And God is simply saying, we are in a pivotal moment. Let me pick up my pen. We are at a pivotal point in civilization, not only globally, around the world. All of civilization, all of humanity is going to experience not only a rude awakening, but you're going to see the rainbow appear. You're going to see that the saints and believers are going to clear the skies. But before that, what did the Lord do a third time? The Lord opened the window, and the Lord showed me the tombs popping open, and he said to me, 3 hours of darkness. He said the mandate of those words, 3 hours of darkness, God said, and he spoke audibly. After I said 3 hours of darkness, God said the fulfillment of the message in the title, 3 hours of darkness. And he said that the pains and the birth pains are getting very heavy when it comes to that woman in Revelation chapter 12. Listen closely. God just did another thing, and he's moving quickly, and I'm trying to keep up with him. He said that the birth pains are getting heavy when it comes to that woman in Revelation chapter 12. But then he showed me this in the realm of the spirit. He showed me 85 seconds to the doomsday clock. And I have said, God doesn't need to wait for the midnight hour to strike, because at the midnight hour, there's going to be a rude awakening. There's a sound. There's a buzz. I said a few telecasts a week ago, and I have said that there's a sound from the wailing walls of Jerusalem. Jerusalem weeping, Jerusalem surrounded. And what you got here in the making, because I said to you, highlight that. That is, that I said to you, what's in the making. The flashing point is what? Lightning and thundering, where Jesus is going to clear the clouds. And the Lord showed me a deck of cards. And now he's showing me the number 21. I'm going to tell you what he did just now. He took my eyes into the realm of the spirit. Then before that, he said, it's a deck of cards. The Lord comes out. He shows me a queen. He shows me a king. He shows me an ace. And when you add it all up, it's simply 21. Why in the world will the Lord show me the number 21? Because the number 21, it's a symbolic spiritual meaning of breakthrough. Let me make this very clear. God is about to deliver not only into your life, into your soul, and to every born again believer, not only your breakthrough, your miracle, but God said these words in the audible voice of God came and said these words. He's about to wipe away your tears and turn your tears into tears of joy. And there's going to be a celebration in glory. And God is showing me. He took me into the realm of the Spirit again and showing me when Miriam, Moses, and Aaron and them and the Israelite not only was leaving Egypt, but they left totally blessed, overwhelmingly blessed of the living God. And God said and showed me a deck of cards. Then he opened the window, showed me 21. And then what he did, he showed me a queen, a king, and an ace. And I have said that God not only got an ace, but a trump card. But he said at the beginning of this telecast, it's simply checkmate and breakthrough for every believer. And I hope you claim it in Jesus' name. You see, in verse number 64, but there are some of you who do not believe. And I have said in part 13, that you're beginning to see the falling away, because even the disciples walked with Jesus. Even the disciples were trained and taught by Jesus. They were even promoted by Christ. But then again, there were some believers who followed Jesus. But when it came to the time when Jesus was about to ascend and the ascension, and he was about to clear the clouds, there were some still standing there. And in the book of Acts, it talks about, in Acts chapter 1, that many stood there, and then two men appeared, and I believe two angels. And they say, this same Jesus that is left just as he left is the same way he will come back and appear to the whole world. PowerPoint number 2. I know that I haven't gotten to PowerPoint number 1. Verse number 64. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were, who did not believe, and who would betray him. And I said, you need to circle back one, because you heard me seconds ago. And this is the reason why I said PowerPoint number 2 without first explaining PowerPoint number 1. Excuse me for that. PowerPoint number 1 is simply that there is going to be a shutdown. Not a shutdown as shutting down the borders and nations and things like that. I'm talking about there's going to be believers and people in civilization globally around the world that are going to refuse not only to register to the global digital ID, and they will be outcast, and they will be completely not only outcast or from participating in society. That's why I said PowerPoint number 1, shut down completely from society. But for every believer and every born again believer and every man and woman, and for the 144,000 in the not only the Israelites and every Jew and also the Gentile believers, I want you to understand one thing. God has simply said for the last 6 years that there's no need to be concerned. He said to me this word and showed me the word in the realm of the Spirit. He said, fret not, be not afraid of what man can do to you, a world power, world government, or the globalists, or any leader around the world, or any dictator. God is simply saying he will always provide for his people, because he said not only that he's got a queen, he's got a king, he's got an ace. He's about to ace this whole thing. Let me say that again. Put my pin down. He's about to ace this whole thing. You're going to see a rude awakening, a shaking. You're going to see the tombs open. Going to see the globalists with global giant tech scrambling, because I have said that at some point you're going to see the repeat of the Tower of Babel. Let's go to PowerPoint number 2, where it's the turn. And then I said next to it, the global digital ID. Because when I read the ending of verse 64, but let me read verse 65. And he said, therefore I said to you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted to him by my Father. Verse 66, From that time, many of the disciples went back and walked with him no more. You see, I touched on verse 66 from the 6th chapter of John. And in my prior telecast, I said to you in part 13 of the kingdom of heaven is at hand. When you see those numbers, you see 666. You see it's the 6th chapter of the book of John. You see the 66th verse. And you see there that many will pull away and many will abandon their faith and many will shrink away. Not only shrink away, but you're going to see the falling away because you're going to see what the Lord is showing me, the global acceleration. PowerPoint number 2, the turn. And below it, I also forgot to tell you to write the church and believers. And the reason I write the turn is because we're going to go back to ancient biblical civilization where in the Roman Empire, in the Roman time, the church scattered, but the church was persecuted. The church also betrayed one another, turned on one another, just like they did, and they turned on Jesus of Nazareth. I want to make that very clear when it comes to the church and believers. And if you think that that's not going to happen, I got news for you. The one and most likely person that you think that's not going to turn you in or tell a myth or a story or make up a story against you and you're going to find yourself incarcerated, more than likely it's going to be one of your closest friends or your best friend or one of your loved ones or one of your immediate family ones. Because the word of God said that the first blow that you will experience is a blow right from inside your home. Let's go to PowerPoint number 3, the global consequences. And the world needs to get ready, and you need to circle back one, because what's in the making as not only a flashing point, but you're going to see global consequences on a global stage like never seen before. And the glory of God saying global consequences, the turn, believers turning on each other. America turns on America. Not only world empires turn on each other. And then you got the establishment of one final empire and the fourth beast empire in the revived Roman Empire. You need to keep in mind PowerPoint number 3, the withering of the saints. And here is the reason why. When I go back to verse number 66, from that time, say that with me, from that time, many of his disciples went back and walked with him no more. The Lord opened up and spoke again. And the grace of God now speaks for the 4th or 5th time. The grace of God, what you're beginning to see shape up is simply Sodom and Gomorrah and Satan's final seduction. I made that very clear. You need to understand the seducing and the seduction, because the scriptures clearly say that Satan will seduce the entire world, and the grace of God popped the window opened the window, took me into the realm of the spirit for the 4th or 5th time. And then the Lord took me to a verse which I was meditating not only yesterday and the day before and the last couple of days. And that is 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4. It talks about that Satan totally, the God of this age, has blinded every single believer, the unbeliever as well as the believers. The church is totally blinded. And the Bible speaks, how can a blind man lead a blind man? You're bound to fall into a ditch. And today I'm concerned because dear believers that totally believe everything that they hear, they listen, or they watch on YouTube, on Facebook, on Rumble, on Patreon, and the grace of God is simply saying you need to pull back. First, do some reflection, because that was one of my PowerPoints in part 13 was the word reflection. You need to reflect not only on yourself first before you start to reflect on the outside. I just said that you must be first power packed in the inside before you can be able to power pack the outside. You need to do some reflection. reflect on your soul, reflect on your decision, but you don't need to dwell on the past. And that's a critical point there, because many of the believers and many of civilization and humanity practically they're living in the past, when God is saying leave it alone and keep moving forward, keep plowing, keep plugging away, and sooner or later the Lord will bring you through, because the Lord showed the number 21 and it's a symbolic symbol of breakthrough. Now, PowerPoint number 4, the withering of the saints. And the Lord spoke that today at 9:23 a.m., February 16, 2026. Now, PowerPoint number 5, life withering away. And you will sit here and say to me, but isn't that the same concerning PowerPoint number 4, the withering of the saints? And the answer is yes and no, because PowerPoint number 4 strictly focuses on where the church is in the structure of where every living being soul is, but where the living souls of every believer, every born-again believer, and every single leader in Ephesians 4:11. And the grace of God is simply saying that when you look at PowerPoint number 4 and you look at PowerPoint number 5, they're totally different. PowerPoint number 4 focus from the spiritual aspects of things. Where is the church? And the church simply is totally dry, and believers withering away, believers believing any kind of thing that they see, hear, or listen to on YouTube, on Rumble, on Facebook. And the glory of God is saying, remember PowerPoint number 2, the turn. And at some point, these believers that have been totally blinded, what others are saying, or other preachers that are not only, God show me the word, manipulating from the pulpit. And the grace of God is saying, these believers at some point is going to deliver a major blow to their very own loved ones. And it can be your loved one, your wife, your husband, your children, your best friend, your neighbor. And the glory of God is saying, you need to put on what he just said to me, the full armor of God. Ephesians 6:10-20. Let us continue with verse 67 of John chapter 6. Then Jesus said to the 12, do you also want to go away? You see, that's a good question. Because in PowerPoint number 5, life withering away, you see that they're practically trying to put a choke, and not only a choke, and a strangle on civilization. And they're going to not only put constant pressure, which is PowerPoint number 8, and pressure you into giving in. And then the final stage is that they're going to force you and pressure you to make not only a pledge and pledge an allegiance to worship Lucifer and the Antichrist and the false prophet. And I got news for you. You need to turn. If you're lukewarm or cold or you're a backslider, you need to quickly turn, because the grace of God is simply saying that he is sending a stern warning, because the glory of God said, clearing the sky. He said a rude awakening. He said checkmate. He opened the window. He showed me a deck of cards. He opened the window, showed me a queen, a king, an ace. And I said, God is about to ace this whole thing, because he said, checkmate. Let's go to PowerPoint number 6, Blackness. And that one, I'm just going to maybe just leave it here, but let me touch a little bit, because I said, how can a blind man lead a blind man? And how can you totally walk in blindness? The bottom line is that today in this world, what you see is simply pitch darkness. But the glory of God said something to me. But he is, watch what he said, he is a supernatural beaming light to every believer and every saint. Glory to God. In other words, in the midst of pitch darkness, in the midst of what he just showed me, the word calamity. Remember Revelation 6:1. We're closer concerning the vision of the Lord, where I saw the Lord, I couldn't see his face, holding the 7th seal in the scroll, and he's about to open the seven seals and the seven scroll. And that is why I said that the grace of God said, clearing the sky. And I have said over and over that one of the key highlight things is what's in the making. Another one is blackness. And another and third one, which I said it's a key and not only a highlight to this whole title, is who are you listening to? And I've already explained that there is one thing that God said to me just now. And this is the word of the Lord. And the word of the Lord came to me and he said, total pollution. The grace of God said pollution. I want to bring clarity. I said the word total, so I want to make the correction. The Lord just said pollution. So the Lord said pollution. I want to make very clear, because remember, we're not to add or to take out when God speaks. So I'm saying it from a very humble way, clothed in humility, clothed in the glory of God, saying that the only thing God said in the word of the Lord that came was pollution. I said total pollution. So PowerPoint number 7, who are you listening to? I'm just going to let that one rest there. PowerPoint number 8, constant pressure. I explained that to you. And remember, God said, and he is showing me to go back. Now I want you to listen. I'm going to put my pen down, and the grace of God is giving me specific instructions. And it is vitally, that's the word he said, it's vitally important that the world listen and that every listener understand. He said to understand where we at globally, technically, around the world and on earth. And God said the earth is simply gasping for air. The Lord gave me instructions, and the Lord went back and took me to the moment where I was speaking concerning 3 hours of darkness. And what he did now, he gave me instructions to go back to that. And then he showed me again the word fulfilled and fulfillment. I believe that God is sounding the alarm. And not only sounding the alarm, but God is simply saying that you're going to hear the tombs. Not only the tombs pop open, but the glory of God is simply saying, from Matthew 24, Matthew 25. You can go into different chapter, from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, from Revelation 4:1. What the glory of God is simply saying these words, that everything, at a moment, at a peak, at the twinkle of an eye, the church goes up and everything goes completely silence in heaven. And then after the church goes up, you're going to see a radical, extremely change to the entire world globally when it comes to where every nation is located and the locality of that nation. And God said, in every mountain move from its original place. Because what I wanted to say to you is that God is speaking loud and clear. 3 hours of darkness, you're going to see those tombs pop open, and then immediately everything goes silent. And he said to me, after everything goes silent, you got Revelation 8:1, then you got verse 10 and 11 and 12 and so on, and you got the star called wormwood falling from the sky, coming down to the earth, and then that follows in consecutive session. You got Lucifer on planet Earth with the Antichrist, with the false prophet, and you got Revelation 16:13. So I want to close with this, that God just gave me specific instruction and took me back to where I was talking about 3 hours of darkness. And he took me back and gave me another instructions. This is another instructions he just gave me. He told me, go back and to remind all of civilization and the entire body of Christ. This is what he said. He said, and the woman is in heavy labor. The woman is in heavy labor. She's about to give birth. And then the Lord showed me again for the second time, 85 seconds to the doomsday clock. You see Revelation 12, you see that woman? She's about to give birth. Not only the woman, the child, the dragon, and the rapture, Not only that concerns with the nation of Israel, but also with every Gentile believer. And then after PowerPoint number 8, constant pressure, I said to you, Satan's final seduction. You're going to see what the Lord said at the beginning or somewhere in the middle of this title. You're going to see global seduction. And you got here, like the days of Lot, you got Luke 17, where the Lord spoke about a week and a half ago, and you and I taken out in the nick of time. And remember last week's title, I said to circle, take out, because God is going to score checkmate. He's going to score. Not only checkmate, he's going to ace you. Now when I say he's going to ace all of civilization in planet Earth, and every single human being needs to understand one thing before I close in the benediction, because this is what he showed me to tell all of humanity and all of civilization. He said something. This is what the word of the Lord. And the word of the Lord came to me. He said, prepare. But before he said the word prepare, what I was going to say to you when I went like this, that God is reminding all of civilization and all of humanity that what's coming is the one out of the bottomless pit, and also bad, that there are 4 in the Euphrates River that are simply going to be released from the earth because they've been waiting for the day, for the hour, for the month, for the year. It sounds like Galatians 4:10, a day, a month, a year. And the glory of God simply saying, the establishment of 11th hour, and we are about to clear the sky. It's a rude awakening. Checkmate. The tombs are going to be pop open. That woman is in heavy labor and heavy pain. You're going to see that the church is simply going to go up in glory. But even if we're here for a second, if we're here for a moment, I simply want to remind you that there is divine reason and divine purpose why God opens a window, shows me the number 21, then shows me the deck of cards, and God simply saying, for you and I, and for every born-again believer going forward until the time that we are raptured, until the time that Jesus clears the clouds and you see the rainbow appear, God is simply saying, continue to claim your breakthrough, because God is going to funnel, that's the word he's showing me, funnel in a miracle and bring financial breakthrough in life to your soul at a time when it's pitch black and pitch dark outside. The church needs to understand what the Lord did in Exodus chapter 10, verse 21, 22, and 23. When the Israelites were in Egypt, they were bound. They were in captivity. The grace of God not only brought total darkness to the nation of Egypt, but he supplied a supernatural beaming light to every Israelite. And the glory of God sustained every Israelite with his glory, with his light, with his supernatural beaming light, because Jesus said, I am the bread of life, and I am the light of the world. I am the captain of salvation. To every living soul and every born-again believer that is accepted Christ as your Savior. I'm going to leave it right here. May the Lord so richly bless you. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, hit on the bell to receive our latest telecast. And remember, I catch you on my next telecast of Catch and Go. God bless.